Today I'll be talking about the hairline positioning. If somebody has lost the frontal scalp and the hairline, how to determine the position of the hairline? That is very important decision because that determines your forehead length and how your face is framed from the top. So the hairline positioning is a very important determinant. So I'll be enumerating some criteria which we undertake to determine the frontal hairline positioning. The central point of the hairline is called mid-frontal point, MFP. The mid-frontal point, the number one criteria to determine that is the distance above the glabella. What is the glabella? Midpoint between the eyebrows is called glabella. So the mid-frontal point should be 7, 8, 9 or 10 centimeters above the glabella. That is the number one criteria which we should look at while determining the mid-frontal point. The second most important criteria is the positioning of mid-frontal point above the frontalis muscle. So if I contract my forehead muscles like this, so this is my frontalis muscle, so I can feel the muscle. Ideally, the hairline should be positioned above the muscle. So when we can't feel the muscle, we should find out that point and we should try to position the mid-frontal point above the muscle. The idea is when we move our forehead muscles, our hairline should not move. This is very important. If our hairline is moving with the movement of forehead muscles, then it looks unnatural and extremely low. So that is also very important. The third most important determinant of the mid-frontal point is the curvature of the scalp. As we know, the scalp shape and curvature varies from one person to another. So the forehead is vertical, the top of the scalp is horizontal. Between this horizontal and the vertical plane is the curvature comes. So ideally the hairline should come in the center of that curvature. That is a very important point that gives an individualized approach to determining the position of hairline and for determining the position of mid-frontal point. So now I'll be demonstrating the variation of this mid-frontal point according to the curvature of the scalp. So there are two individuals who don't have any baldness, who are very young, but the positioning of MFP in one person is above the curvature and in one person it is below the center of the curvature. So ideally it should be in the center of curvature, but we can have variations from one person to another. I'll be demonstrating that variation now. So as we can see, the hairline is below the curvature. So this is the vertical portion, this is the horizontal portion, there is a curvature. So the mid-frontal point is lying on the lower end of the curvature and it comes just above. The vertical portion starts curving. So the mid-frontal point starts immediately when the forehead starts curving. In his case, we can see the distance between the tip of nose and glabella is a bit more than the distance between the glabella and the mid-frontal point. So this is, as I told earlier, this is another criteria for determining the mid-frontal point. That is, the distance between tip of nose and glabella should be equal to the distance between glabella and the mid-frontal point. And in this scenario, we can see the mid-frontal point is a bit lower than that point and we have a bit more aggressive hairline. So this is a normal variation of a normal non-bald hairline. This is another scenario with no baldness and we can see the mid-frontal point starting at the end of the curvature. So this is the vertical portion, this is the horizontal portion, there is a curvature here, but the mid-frontal point is way above the curvature starts and it is almost when the scalp starts taking a curve towards the horizontal. So the mid-frontal point is high on the curvature side of the forehead. Another guiding factor is the distance between the tip of the nose and glabella. So as we can see, In this case, the distance is less between the tip of the nose and glabella, whereas comparatively the same distance between the glabella and mid-frontal point is a bit higher. So this distance should be almost equal to the distance between tip of nose and glabella. So this is called the rule of third. The face can be divided into three parts: 1/3, upper 1/3, middle 1/3 and lower 1/3. This is called rule of thirds. So this distance should be equal to this distance, but I am explaining a normal variation where this mid-frontal points and glabella distance is a bit more than the distance between tip of nose and glabella.